Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TCR Express. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey, and with me I have
Russell Hixson, staff writer at the Journal of Commerce, surviving the great Metro Vancouver heat wave as we speak.
It is a bit much, by which we mean it's about 24 degrees right now. We're a bunch of whips for us to Canada. Just lay it on us. Okay, so we're going to get into what's happening this week. But after that, I have an interview with Bryan G. Arnold from Eastern Construction and Mike Yorke of the Carpenters Union. They've got a thing going on in Ontario where they're incentivized in getting your second vaccine dose. So to find out more about that, listen to everything we've got to say. And then after that, we'll have that interview. So before that, what's going on, Russell?
Well, I got an interview this week with a company called Orion Construction, and they're building several industrial complexes that are larger than 400,000 square feet. And these are kind of the white whales of Metro Vancouver. And they estimate there's only about a dozen or so of these opportunities left, period. That's it. In the Metro Vancouver area, the industrial land crunch is kind of reaching its conclusion in terms of like this large format. So I'm going to be chatting with them a little bit. And there's a story up right now that I did about Indigenous recruitment into the trades that was really interesting that you guys should check out. I spoke with a bunch of people who are experts at trying to connect Indigenous people with trades careers. And I just asked them, are we doing a good job? Are some of these efforts working, and what are some of the barriers Indigenous people face? And one of the common themes is they mentioned the bodies that were found at the former residential school, and they said everyone was so shocked and dismayed and horrified. And essentially the people I talked to said, well, that's what we've been feeling for a long time. So now how we felt for many, many years. And they said that just illustrates how little education and understanding there is of Indigenous history and Canadian history and what Indigenous people have gone through. And they say that until people become better educated about that, it makes it difficult to connect people with trades careers. For example, Indigenous or schools on reservations have been horrifically underfunded for a long, long time. So the quality of education that a lot of Indigenous people have received was very, very poor. And so when they go and try and take some tests to enter the trades, they often, don't necessarily have those skills, and they need to have that gap bridged. But until you have an understanding of that, history, that historic underfunding, it may not go addressed. And to be fair, like a lot of unions are starting to do stuff like that. But anyways, that's the story that I worked on, and that's kind of what I got going on, Mr. Frey.
And going to the east on Thursday, staff writer Angela Gismondi will be attending an Ontario Road Builders Association webinar called Navigating Supply Chain Risk. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, disruptions in the global supply chain have become a big issue affecting the construction industry as well as other industries. The webinar will provide insights into understanding supply chain risks, how to properly assess and protect supply lines and revenue, what is needed for businesses to recover from a supply chain disruption, and what navigating risk may look like for the industry. Stay tuned for more on that story. Angela is also covering the Women's Leadership Initiative's Championship Team virtual celebration on June 24th, which recognizes outstanding female leaders in real estate and development in the Toronto region. The awards are presented by the Urban Land Institute Toronto, and women from the construction industry will be receiving the honor. Daily Commercial News staff writer Don Wall recently wrote on how the industrial construction sector is dealing with various pressures across Canada, including high demand for land, rising prices, and jurisdictions that are slow to turn around service land. Panelists participating in a recent webinar that was part of the 2021 Land and Development Conference said that there is often double the number of bidders for industrial property than there was a few years back, and landlords are adopting new ways of charging for space in warehouses. It's now sometimes by the cubic foot, not the square foot. It's kind of a perfect storm, said panelist Phil Brown, a vice president with Hopewell Development LP. Each market has unique challenges, Brown said, and that mixed with extreme demand has gotten developers to the point where they are chasing every piece of land they can and booking far in advance. And as promised, here's that interview with Mike Yorke of the Carpenters Union and Bryan G. Arnold of Eastern Construction. It's all about how they're using incentivizing to get people to get their second COVID vaccine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to TCR Express. This is a special interview segment that we have on our midweek podcast. And with me is...
We've got Mike Yorke, the president of Carpenters Local 27, as well as president of the Carpenters District Council of Ontario.
And Bryan Arnold, president and CEO of Eastern Construction, and I am also a director on the board for the Welfare and Benefit program for the Carpenters Local 27.
And they're here today because we've got a sort of a teaming up of management and labor on COVID. So rather than me stumbling through that, why don't you guys explain exactly what this whole process is?
Well, Bryan, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, thanks, Mike. I guess it started out with actually within our company. We wanted to do something for our employees, and directly with respect to COVID, we saw some people struggling with, they're getting their shots, they're having a reaction, and maybe taking some time off work, and so we decided within our own company to modify our sick leave, and we gave every employee an additional 3 days sick leave this year, so that they could have additional time off to either go get vaccinations or take time off when they had some potential reactions to the vaccination. And it was just our way of helping promote within our company to our employees that we want them to be safe and want to help them. I'm on the board of directors with the Carpenters Local 27, and I thought it was a really good idea, and brought it to the board and said, I think it would be great if we could do something similar for the members of Local 27. Mike and the rest of the guys, I'm going to say, really embraced it and said that they thought it was a great idea to help promote it. And, I keep going back, this is all about safety and what can we do with the membership. So through many discussions through the board and the manager of the fund, we came up with a one-time benefit of $450 for any member that shows proof of vaccination for the second shot. And this is really to help, one, encourage them to get the shot, and again, showing how we're dedicated to the membership. And secondly, to try and offset it, if a carpenter had to take some time off to go get the shot, or potentially did have a bit of a reaction and couldn't go to work the next day, this is just to help them through it and promote it. So that's kind of my spiel. I'll let Mike jump in and add to that. So,
well, Warren, it's we took a long-term look at it. The COVID crisis has been, incredibly impactful on our society, on our industry. And as essential workers, our members are out there every day in some cases, in dangerous situations, but they're working every day trying to keep this economy going and doing their best for their families and themselves as well. We said, how can we recognize the need for increasing vaccinations and also show some leadership that it's the important thing and the right thing to do. There's a lot of examples I would give of that. Look, even within the context of the Carpenters Union, a lot of our members that want to go down to our International Training Center in Las Vegas for upgrade, specific skills training. That center only will take people that have been double vaccinated and only 2 weeks after that last vaccination. So we wanted to say and set the benchmark very high in terms of a policy on vaccination. So when Bryan brought this forward, and I'll give credit to Bryan for doing so, we had a long discussion about it and thought, this is a great example to promote vaccinations within the industry and within our union. And I think it was readily picked up by the other trustees on the plan.
And have you seen any reticence on that? That's been more of a problem in the States than it has in Canada, from what I can tell. But have you seen any reticence within the industry, or have you seen the opposite? Have you seen people chomping at the bit to get their second vaccination?
I think probably more the opposite. Although you're right to highlight that in the U.S. And I think that there's a large number within the states, 30-35% that'll be very reticent on getting vaccinated. But I will tell you that the colleagues that I have, even in the context of healthcare here in Ontario, that they're, like 15-20% of folks are very reticent. But the most recent, surveys that I've seen, talking from a fully Canadian perspective, talking about 90% of Canadians are willing and think that getting vaccinated is the right thing to do. So that's a pretty high level, and we're doing what we can to ensure that we reach those numbers in our industry.
And what's been the reception to this plan? Because I think you announced it last week publicly.
I'm going to say, from my perspective, been very positive feedback, certainly from our members. There's been other questions from other union members in the industry. So maybe it's seen as a bit of a benchmark. I like to think that in many cases, the Carpenters Union is out in leadership in our industry, and this is another example of it. But Brian, I mean, I haven't heard from the management side other feedback, but from the shop floor, so to speak, or the building trade site, I think it's been pretty positive.
Yeah, I would agree, Mike. I've heard nothing but positive comments on it. They think it's the right thing to do. They think it's a great promotion, and I agree with you that we're, certainly what I'm seeing and hearing is that from in Ontario, we're looking at maybe 10% of the population that is reluctant to get the vaccinations, and this will hopefully entice some of those people to do it, and some people may not be doing it just because they don't want to lose the pay and take the time off work.
Yeah.
So this is hopefully going to help promote that, and I think as we go forward too, like Mike mentioned that you can't go to their facility down in Vegas without being double vaccinated, and we're going to see more and more of that, whether it's crossing the border or going to a sports venue or a concert. It's going to be a requirement, so we're going to have to deal with it.
And go ahead, Mike.
Well, Warren, I did mention that from the perspective of the Carpenters, we saw it as the right thing to do, but I would be it would be improper for me to say that was just the one aspect. No, it was a real collaborative effect and a real collaborative approach from management and labor at the trustees of the plan. So I want to give credit, like I said, to the management trustees, because it was a real approach. How do we do this? How do we show leadership in the industry and in the sector? And I think that that's kind of indicative of the way that a lot of the construction unions work with their management sides, as a collaborative approach for the betterment to create a stronger industry.
And so if you're a construction worker, how do you go about, do you have to show proof of the vaccination? How does that work?
Yeah, that's the only real requirement, Warren, is to show proof of the vaccination, submitting for an application for the benefit. So we wanted to keep it simple. We didn't want to put a whole bunch of requirements on it that just made it difficult. We just said, let's keep it plain and simple. If you can show proof of second vaccination, you are eligible for the benefit.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to go, to make it as simple as possible. So it's like almost any other benefit that you'd want to have, eyeglasses or dental, it's done through the same administrator. Manions is our administrator, and just showing proof of, proof of vaccination, the second vaccination. That's all that's required to get, and it's a direct deposit as well. So again, we're using established systems and methods for payment of benefits. So membership is very fluent, very aware of how these things work, and working with our third-party administrator, as we always do. That just makes it as easy as possible, as Brian has mentioned.
It is time sensitive, though. So the window for the members to apply for it is to the end of this year.
Okay. And if they want any more information, where should they go to find out?
Well, one would be through Carpenters Local 27 website, or through Mannion's office and Mannion's mymanions.org. So our members are fluent with that. So in fact, actually, if other folks are interested, again, through the Carpenters Union, Local 27.
Okay, great. Any final words from either of you?
Thanks, Warren, for the opportunity to get the message out there and talk about, like I said, something that's a positive step that we've taken collaboratively.
Okay. Bryan, any final words from you?
No, I think Mike, you summed it up quite well, and we're trying to support the members, and we saw this as one of the better ways to support them, and we look forward to what else we can do in coming as we work through this. The pandemic's not over.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks very much, guys.
Okay,
thanks,
thank
gentlemen.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
All right, and that's it for another episode of the Construction Record Express. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of TCR Express or the Friday podcast, you can listen to us on Apple Music, Spotify, and Amazon Music, or on the Daily Commercial News or Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks, everyone.